and welcome to another Interesting Modeler HFO. In this video, we're going to meet modeler Lou Dalmaso. He's a prolific sci-fi modeler, also has a successful YouTube channel, and if you don't know his name, you probably recognize him through his painting mask sold under the name Aztec Dummy. And if you're like me, you're probably really grateful for all the time and aggravation he saved you with these things. So in our conversation, we'll learn a little bit about how he got into sci-fi modeling, and how he got into creating these painting masks, and we'll get a look at some of his amazing work. So let's go ahead and meet modeler Lou Dalmaso. Alright everyone, and as you know, I am on a self-imposed mission here to interview modelers from all around our sci-fi modeling universe, and today I'm excited to have modeler Lou Dalmaso. Thanks for being on, Lou. How are you?
Thanks. Apparently you've reached the bottom of the barrel.
No. No. Far from it. Far from it. Well, hey, I again just want to thank you for being on. And of course, I always like to start by finding out a little bit about the modeler that we're interviewing. So can we get started with telling us how you got into model building and what makes you choose sci-fi to build?
Oh, which time? Of course, I was back in the day. I was a modeler of really poor results, and then I gave it up for quite a few years while I went to college and all of that kind of stuff, and then came back to it. Probably in the early 2000s is when I really came back to it. So why did I get started on it? Because I grew up in a house of sisters, and no one to play with. poor kid. So I had to make my own fun, whittling sticks and things like that. So no, I mean, modeling was an easy solitary, and I've always had some sort of creative bent. So it was an easy way to do something small and fairly inexpensive back in the day. And and it was a way to exercise the creative muscle.
And sci-fi, you've just always been a fan of sci-fi?
Sci-fi because I want to say it's easier, but sci-fi because it fuels my imagination more than I could go out on the street and look and see a very nice automobile. I didn't need to have a model of an automobile. I could find those. What I wanted was a model of something I could never possibly have in real life. So that's what I did. Do a number of course, being a child of the 60s, I did do a number of real space, like Apollo modules, things like that, things that were actually happening at the time.
Sure.
But I never really got into the military planes and tanks and cars again, because that stuff was there. I could see that. Plus, it's a lower bar to cross, because if you can make a rocket look like a rocket, but if you tried to make a car, then automatically you had every critic in the world saying that's wrong, and that. So.
Yeah, that's true. So now let's talk about these painting masks that you've achieved a bit of notoriety for. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got started with that and what prompted you to do them?
Back in late 2003, 2004, when I guess they were Polar Lights at the time, brought out the big Enterprise from the Enterprise series. It was the 1-2 punch of the Enterprise and the refit, the 350 scale big kits that came out. And that really jump-started me back into modeling. And I'm looking at this NX01, and it's got this wonderful paint scheme on the box. And I'm watching the series, and then I open up the box, and there's that paint scheme is nowhere to be seen. And it's like, how do I duplicate that? Well, I look around at the things I've got at work at the time, which back at the time I was working in an art department and a government job, but they had a vinyl cutter. And for use in making signs. And I said, well, if I can draw out the shapes that are on the ship, I can cut those out of vinyl and be able to paint those on by, just using a simple stencil. And that's how it started. It's I offered that up on Hobby Talk, I think, at the time. It's like, I'm doing this. And they said, wow, how'd you do that? And it just kind of snowballed from there.
On behalf of many of us modelers, we're so grateful that you do that. Because, particularly the Aztec schemes are just very intricate and takes a long time to just do with masking tape or anything of that sort.
When people were masking, each shape along the refit hull, it's like, I could do one in about an hour, but how am I going to make this one here match the one that's on the other side over there? And it's like, well, it's all symmetrical. So if I can make a shape and I could duplicate that shape, then that takes care of some of the mundane work of making your ship the way you want it, and it restores some fun to your build.
So you don't have to give any secrets, so to say, away, but can you tell us in a nutshell the process you go through when you are ready to design a new mask and all that?
Well, the first thing I do is I look at the clear parts. Are there any windows? Because that to me, that's the first thing. Whether it's a Star Wars kit or a Star Trek kit, or especially if it's like a fighter, like an X-wing or a Viper or something like that. There's that canopy. You want to mask that canopy, and you want the windows to be clean. So that's the first thing. And then beyond that, is there an Aztec pattern, or are there, like on the Viper, are there stripes that would be better off painted than done in decal? But basically, the nutshell thing is, I take the kit, I get the actual kit. I try always to work off of the physical results so that whatever I'm designing is going to fit. I actually have to build the kit as I am doing the painting masks to prove that they work. And then I'll just put a piece of tape over it, trace off the design that I want to use, scan that design, clean it up in the computer, and then output it to the plotter. It's about that simple.
And how long does it take to make a painting mask from start to finish?
It could take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. I usually go through about 2 or 3 iterations of the design to make sure, I plot it, test fit it, tweak that design, plot it again, or rescan it, plot it. I might go through 2 or 3 depending on the complexity of the curves and that sort of thing.
Sure.
What takes me the longest is writing the instructions. I'm trying to figure out how to express, like I'm doing now, my thought process onto paper, which isn't always easy.
Right, it's not always easy. Exactly.
I know what I did. I can show you what I did. I can't tell you what I did.
Right, exactly.
So writing the instructions and doing that last bit of paperwork hurdle is probably the part that sticks the longest.
What's been your most popular painting mask?
Oddly enough, the one that still amazes me, that I still get requests for, is the Pegasus Nautilus window masks.
All right. And as you can see, I have my Aztec Dummy Mobius Raptor painting mask.
Look at that sexy packaging.
Yeah. Because that's going to be my next build there.
Yeah. Right. I apologize for the generic packaging. I can't make it look all that sexy, but that's what it does.
Hey, it works. It works.
It keeps my costs down, and it keeps your costs down.
So next we're going to review a couple of your builds, which, by the way, looking at your collection, I had a tough time. I just was amazed at it, trying to pick out some that we would talk about. So let's go ahead and review a couple of your models, or a few of your models here. We're going to go ahead and first talk about the Nautilus, which is a mass-produced kit. And it's the one that you had mentioned that is very popular, or at least has been requested for with the painting masks. So let's go ahead and take a look at that one.
Okay.
All right. So this is now produced by Pegasus, is that right?
This is a Pegasus kit. I have added quite a few details to the base that I picked up at the pet store. Wow. These are all aquarium decorations that I've repurposed.
Very nice.
But that probably is one of the nicer lessons I've learned is you don't have to go to a hobby store to find all your stuff. You can go to the auto parts place. You can go to the pet store. You can find props anywhere. You don't have to limit yourself to what's available at the hobby shop.
So this obviously differs now from the classic Disney Nautilus that we're all familiar with.
Yes, this was an independent design, and that's something that Pegasus does nicely. They will. There was this one, Randy Cooper's Hopper design. Well, they will take something that's designed out in the world that may be a resin kit, and then they'll take that and retool it for a styrene kit, which will allow a lot wider audience to enjoy, a kit they may not see anywhere else.
Yeah.
What I like about this is, since it's not the Nautilus from the movie, you have much more license to paint it any way you want to.
Sure.
There's no rivet counter out there saying, well, that's wrong.
Yeah, right.
You can do it any way you like. And this also, I had a small experiment with lighting in here. I don't know whether you can see the maze. It's more accurate when I turn it on so you can see it.
Mm-hmm.
But using photo etch, which I believe was paragraphics, and my mask for the windows.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think it got quite a nice result. It was one of the first examples of trying to do a metallics, and then we do metallics with a tarnish on them too.
Yeah. Oh, it looks fantastic. And the model comes with the creature underneath it then, right?
It's got this, which is kind of unique because it's got the squid, but the squid acts as the base.
Oh, yeah.
And actually the sub rests on the squid arms as the base, which is, I think, kind of unique.
All right, let's go ahead and move on now to an example of some of the figures that you've done. And I found this one really cool looking. This is the Star Trek Kirk and Spock. And I believe they have spacesuits on. Is that right?
There's a bit of a story with this. Let me heft Kirk up here for a second because he's huge.
Oh my gosh, he's a lot bigger. I was expecting something you could put on your desk. Wow.
No. This is if he's about 2 feet tall, I guess this would be 1/3 scale.
Wow.
It's there's an interesting story behind these, and I like it because I get to drop some famous names.
Uh-huh.
This is actually taken from the prop from Star Trek: The Motion Picture.
Wow.
Doug Drexler had, and if you don't know who Doug Drexler is, shame on you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm speaking to your viewers. Shame on you. He got to get his hands on the actual filming prop, and before it went up for auction.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if I should be telling this, but while he had the prop in his greedy little hands, they cast it.
Mm-hmm.
They made a casting from it. That casting found its way to Steve Neill, or the molds found its way to Steve Neill. And Steve was going to cast up, he cast up these figures and he paints them for his own business. And I've been lucky enough to have a good working relationship with Steve Neill over the years. And I said, Steve, I would love to get those. And he was saying, well, he doesn't really do commission work that much anymore. He said, but I will sell you a set of the pieces. And because he has confidence in me that I won't mess it up. So I said, okay, I would like to get one of these sets. And he quoted me a price, and I said, well, geez, for that price, I'll take 2. And I said, but I want to do Spock. And there was no Spock head. It came with a Kirk head. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, Steve, why don't you, because Spock so well, he actually did makeup on the motion picture and sculpted the ears that Nimoy wore. So I said, what this should look like. Why don't you sculpt a Spock head in that scale? And he made he said, you could make a bust of that and sell that on your site, which he does. I said, well, then I'll take one of those busts, saw its head off, and put it on the Kirk head. Uh-huh. But what Steve does is he recreates the prop how it looked in the series. What I wanted to do was recreate how the suits looked in the movie, because between the time they were used for the famous spacewalk scene with Spock,
yes,
and the time that it was sold at auction, it had been hacked apart and changed and used, I think, in a Deep Space Nine episode. So it was no longer in its original state. I'll pull the Spock figure up now so you can see it.
Wow.
So it was no longer in its original state, and I wanted to get back to the movie state.
Yes.
So I asked Steve to send me parts, and I went about remaking it as best I could for the Spock walk in the motion picture.
Wow.
What this allowed me to do was learn how to do some sculpting and some kit bashing and some casting, because I had 2 of these guys to make, and I wanted the detailing to be more or less identical. So I made up one out of some, grease bleeds and scratch built parts, and then I learned how to make a mold of that so that I could cast the parts to put on the other one.
Wow. Fantastic.
So that was a skill building feature.
Oh, great. That's a great story. All right, well, I tell you what, let's go ahead and move on now to the 2001 Pod.
Okay.
One of my favorite movies.
This is the Scott Alexander kit.
Oh, wow, look at that.
The 1/6 scale.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to pull it up there. And I went nuts lighting it.
Wow, yeah.
The floor, turn on the headlights, but you can see Dave's in there.
Yeah.
And all of the, and around the back, I even left the door open in the back.
Oh, yeah.
And a feature that I like to do every once in a while is by using magnets, I can put open up the side of it so you can see. Because it's doing all that hard work and then not being able to ever see inside there. So.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, that is beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah, beautifully done.
I'm hoping that there will be a commercial version of this, hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah, because I know they just came out with the Discovery ship.
It's the Discovery, and they have the Mobius now Pegasus, because Mobius got sold to Pegasus. I don't know under which brand name they'll be doing it, but they have desire to do more 2001 kits, and I'm hoping that's going to be one of them.
Yeah, that'll be great. Fantastic. Thank you for showing this.
You bet.
All right. Okay, we're going to move on now to the last section of the interview here. Now, if you've ever watched the show or used to watch called The Actor Studio, this is where I was inspired to do this. They always ask these quick answer questions towards the end of the interview of the actor. So that's what I'd like to do here. So let's go ahead and start with my first one. Favorite model of all time?
18-inch Enterprise AMT, inaccuracies and all. It is still my favorite kit.
All right. What is your favorite part of a build?
Opening the box and cleaning the pieces, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I like that whiff when you open up the box and you get that whiff of plastic and you start looking at the parts and you start figuring out how they go together and then cleaning them off and all that kind of stuff. That's the part I like the best.
And your wish list model. Now, there's been a lot of models released over the last number of years. I'd say we are kind of in the golden age of sci-fi model building.
We are definitely in the golden age. Yeah. When I got the questions, I'm scratching my head over that because, and I remember as a kid, you couldn't find Jack on the model shelves if you were looking for a sci-fi kit.
Yeah.
If I had to give my quick answer right now, it would be a toss-up between the Orville and the Serenity.
All right. Yeah, good choices. And is there anything in modeling that you have left to try, whether it's a certain detailing technique or a certain scale you haven't tried?
I really, at some point, need to buckle down and do try to do a hyper accurate aircraft or a real space, something that is real, because I always shy away from that because to me it's easier to do fictional things, but doing something real. Yeah. I struggle with painting accurate figures that are human and flesh tone and bug-eyed monsters. Yeah. So an accurate human and or a real vehicle.
And what sci-fi show has had the most influence on you?
Yeah, and this is the part where I'm supposed to say Star Trek, but I'm not gonna. Okay. It was the original black and white Outer Limits.
Oh, cool. That's a show that I've not really watched a whole lot of, and I found it on, I think Hulu's the one that has it now, so I'm definitely going to start watching some of that.
Do yourself a favor and watch them, because they've got every 60s character actor you've ever seen has done an Outer Limits. You'll be surprised to see some of these familiar faces. Yeah. But if you thought that Star Trek told morality tales, Outer Limits was nothing but morality tales, and it was like we'll even tell you the motto or the lesson at the end of the episode.
Yeah, that's great. All right, so and lastly, I'd like to just ask if there's anything you'd like to tell the modeling community.
Build more models. Take your nephew, your niece, your child, your daughter, your son, your granddaughter, your grandson. Take them aside, show them the joy of building something with their own two hands, and show them the sense of accomplishment of getting something that at the end of the day you have a product to show. I mean, it's great that they want to play a video game, but what do you have to show at the end of that? Just get the younger kids involved in it. They may not have the first interest in building, the Titanic or the Mayflower or older subjects, but find something that they like and then help them build it.
Absolutely agree with you. All right, well, thanks for being on, Lou. I really enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing more of your channel as well.
Thank you. It was hardly painful at all.
All right, take care.
Yeah.